Who was Martin Luther King Jr. and what did he do?
How did Martin Luther King become influential and why is he so famous?
And how did he make an impact to Black history? If you're looking for the answers to these questions, then you are in the right place.
Stick to the end of the video to learn important and interesting facts about Martin Luther King Jr.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Black Histories.
In today's video, we are going to talk about the life of Martin Luther King Jr.
So, without further delay,
Let's get into the video.
enjoy!
How can we talk about Black history without a mention of Martin Luther King Jr., a subject covered by many during Black History Month?
Yes, Aaryan, Martin Luther King Jr. is an icon in Black history and an important person for everyone to learn about.
I have read and learned a few things about him and how he played a key role in the American Civil Rights Movement. But what else can you tell me?
Okay, let's start at the beginning. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, United States as Michael Luther King Jr.
Really? His name was Michael, you say? I never knew that.
His father, Michael Sr., changed both his and his son's name to Martin Luther after being inspired by German Protestant leader Martin Luther.
Okay, his father was a pastor at a Baptist church, right?
Yes, he was.
Okay, so how was the early life of Martin Luther King Jr.?
From a very young age, he became aware of discrimination against black people, even facing it himself as a young boy. Martin Luther King attended a segregated public school in Atlanta, Georgia. He was very good in school and graduated from high school at the age of 15. He went on to receive a Bachelor of Arts degree in 1948 from Morehouse College in Atlanta. He continued his studies to gain a bachelor's degree in 1951. Then he went to Boston University and studied to be a minister, gaining a doctorate PhD, the highest education degree, in 1955.
Oh, that's pretty inspiring. He must have been very smart.
Yes, Martin met his wife, Coretta Scott, while at Boston University. They had 4 children together. When he finished his study, he became a minister at the Dexter A. Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama.
So when did he get involved in the Civil Rights Movement?
He became a member of the NAACP, meaning National Association for the Advancement of Colored People Committee. His first major action was to lead the Montgomery bus boycott.
I know this. It was related to Rosa Parks, right?
Yes, we will cover her story in another video.
This was at the time when black people were forced to ride at the back of the bus or stand up if white people wanted a seat. I read that black people stopped riding the bus in protest and other cities and communities followed suit, leading to a massive loss for the industry.
That's right, it was hugely successful, but did lead to many arrests. Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested during his time of protest. The protest lasted 381 days. It resulted in a Supreme Court ruling that ended segregation on buses.
That's a long time. What was Martin Luther King's motivation?
In 1957, he founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He wanted equal rights for black people. As a leader, he showed respect and honesty by never resorting to violence, even though he had much violence towards him. He believed in non-violent protest and made sure others followed him in this quest.
Was this because of his religious beliefs?
Yes. He was also inspired by the work of Mahatma Gandhi.
Oh, that makes sense, as Gandhi was also a civil rights activist in India, whose non-violent methods helped end British rule in India.
Yes. Sadly, the two never met, but Martin did take an inspirational trip to India in 1959. Martin continued to use peaceful protest to fight against discrimination. In the 1960s, students started a non-violent sit-in in North Carolina, Greensboro, which spread to other cities. Martin Luther King was also involved in staging sit-ins as protest.
What is a sit-in?
A sit-in is a form of protest when one or more people sit or stay in a place. For example, cafes were segregated and some refused to serve black people. So the students in Greensboro refused to leave and took seats in protest.
That must have been very scary for them.
Yes, but it got public attention and spread to other cities.
Great. What else did Martin Luther King Jr. do?
He led marches and took part in protests and made speeches. He was part of a group of 250,000 people that marched to Washington in protest for jobs and freedom. At the Lincoln Memorial, civil rights leaders spoke to the crowd calling for change and to motivate and inspire people. This is where the famous "I Have a Dream" speech was delivered, believing in a day that black people and white people would stand together as equals.
I know this speech. He said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the colour of their skin, but by the content of their character." Such powerful words.
It is considered one of the greatest speeches of American history. It is definitely worth listening to the full speech, as it is quite iconic. Unfortunately, there was still a lot of racist attacks and people that were opposed to change and equality. Sad acts of violence and racism occurred in Birmingham, Alabama. Martin Luther King Jr., along with other civil rights activists, fought to bring change. These campaigns, protests and marches are what eventually led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. In July 1964, the Civil Rights Act was signed and made discrimination and segregation illegal. It changed the law to make it more equal and fair.
That's great.
In 1964, he received the Nobel Peace Prize for his work for equality in the United States. At the time, he was 35 and the youngest person to receive the award.
I guess Martin Luther King was successful in his methods.
He was still met with lots of resistance. Did you know he was arrested 29 times while fighting equality?
Whoa, really?
Yes. It is said that he was a person of interest to the FBI, but his work was far from done. In March 1965, protests and marches were held in Selma, Alabama against black voter suppression. They were met with violence and had to make more than one attempt at the march.
There is a movie about this called Selma.
Yes, it came out in 2014 and covers this aspect of history very well. It does have some scenes that are not suitable for younger children, but it's good to watch and learn about this time.
What happened after the events of Selma?
The Voters' Rights Act of 1975 brought in changes to make it fairer for black people to register to vote. The events of Selma were televised and added to the change of perspective for some of Martin Luther King's followers. Young black leaders questioned non-violent methods and had grown tired. There was a move to taking more militant approaches.
So what did Martin Luther King Jr. do?
He continued his non-violent stance and also addressed issues like the Vietnam War and poverty among Americans of all races. In 1967, the SCLC started a program called the Poor People's Campaign. He had plans for another march to Washington. He travelled to Memphis, Tennessee in support of a worker strike. But while in Memphis, he was sadly killed. His last speech, titled "I've Been to the Mountaintop," seemed to imply that he knew his end was near.
Oh no, that gives me chills.
It was a very sad time that led to riots in cities and mourning across the world.
It is so sad that he achieved so much in his life and could have done so much more, I am sure.
Yes, of course, he was only 39 years old. Do you know about Martin Luther King Day?
No, I didn't know about that.
After years of campaigning by activists, members of Congress and Coretta Scott King, in 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill creating a US federal holiday in honor of King. This is observed on the third Monday of January. Martin Luther King Day was first celebrated in 1986.
Glad to see he is recognised for the work he has done to change things. I did not realise the full impact he made to history.
Yes, I have just skimmed over the facts, and there is so much more you can learn about Martin Luther King Jr. in books, movies and videos.
I would like to end this video with one of Martin Luther King's famous quotes. True peace is not merely the absence of tension. It is the presence of justice.
I hope you managed to learn some important facts about Martin Luther King Jr. in our video.
What do you think about his impact on Black history? Add a comment below and let us know what videos you want to see next.
Remember to like, subscribe and share. See you next time.
Thanks for watching!
And stay safe.
Come on.